Well, our big focus, Harvard University has won another reprieve in its fight to keep enrolling international students. A US judge has extended a temporary block on the Trump administration's plan to revoke Harvard's participation in student visa programs after the government clearly said it would give the university 30 days to contest the move. Harvard's legal win came on a symbolic day, though. At the university's graduation ceremony, its president received a thunderous ovation after welcoming students from around the world, just as it should be. Harvard said in a court filing that countless international students have already asked about transferring as a result of the Trump administration's crackdown, and such an exodus would be a boon to other countries. Nick Harper joins us with the lowdown on the latest reprieve for Harvard.
Well, Thursday was graduation day for Harvard University, but it also marked another legal victory for the higher education institution. A judge in the US city of Boston banned the Trump administration from making changes to Harvard's admissions policy indefinitely. Arguing the university's case, the director of Harvard's Immigration Services said that the administration's plan to bar international students had caused profound fear, concern and confusion among faculty and staff members. Ahead of the court hearing, the Trump administration backtracked on its foreign student policy, trying to diffuse the situation by issuing a letter giving Harvard 30 days to challenge the planned banning of international students. But the judge had other ideas, ruling the maintaining of a status quo, meaning that Harvard can continue to enroll international students. If President Trump's plan had come into effect, it would have affected around 7,000 Harvard students. That's more than a quarter of Harvard's students' population, who hail from 140 countries around the world, including around 800 students from India. No more international students would have been allowed to apply to Harvard, and the current students who'd been there would have had to transfer to another college or university. The Trump administration has accused Harvard of multiple wrongs over its refusal to implement government reforms. It's blamed the university of inciting pro-terrorist conduct, fostering anti-Semitism, taking away spots from American students, and colluding with the Chinese government. Nick Harper, NDTV, Washington.
Meanwhile, let's switch tracks for now. A senior Hamas official has said that the Palestinian armed group will reject the latest US proposal for a new Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. The White House has said that Israel had signed off on US envoy Steve Witkoff's plan and that it was waiting for a formal response from Hamas. But for an expert's view on the matter, joining us live on NDTV at the moment, Professor James Dorsey. Thank you so much, sir, as always, for making time for us. Do you agree that it was unusual for Israel to actually come out and agree to a proposal first, and that Netanyahu may be betting on the plan being impossible for Hamas to accept so that he can paint them as the bad guys and continue the war?
Hi, I can't hear you.
Am I audible to you now?
Hello?
Professor Dorsey, am I audible to you now?
Hello?
Right, while we reconnect with Professor Dorsey on the latest as far as an expert's view is concerned, I must also brief our viewers that a senior Hamas official has said that they will reject the latest US proposal for a new Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. I'm told that Professor Dorsey is back with us at the moment. I hope I'm audible to you, sir. I want to ask whether you agree with the fact that it was unusual for Israel to come out and agree to a proposal first. Do you think this is a sort of move by Netanyahu that he may be betting on the plan being impossible for Hamas so that he can paint them as the bad guys and also continue his entire agenda and the war?
Thank you for having me. I think there's several factors playing here.
Right.
First of all, none of what proposal are we talking about? There are different proposals or variations of the Witkoff proposal, and it's not quite clear which one we're referring to. Netanyahu has very clearly stated that he is referring to the original Witkoff proposal, which is a proposal that does not involve an end to the war in Gaza or a complete Israeli withdrawal, two demands that Hamas has insisted on all along. I think the other issue to keep in mind here is that none of the parties wants to be seen as a spoiler. So they're all putting out positive messages, but nonetheless, we may be talking about very different terms.
Of course, keep an eye on the key developments and revert to you for regular updates, Professor Dorsey. Really appreciate your time on NDTV.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Meanwhile, a US appeals court has reinstated many of President Donald Trump's tariffs the day after another court blocked them. The move now puts a pause on a trade court's ruling that Trump exceeded his authority in imposing his Liberation Day tariff regime, adding a jolt of legal chaos to the uncertainty surrounding Trump's global trade war. Trump's advisors, who had condemned the tariff bloc as a judicial coup, celebrated the reprieve, as you can imagine. But the possibility of the initial ruling being reinstated weighs heavily on the White House. But despite the setback, Trump will likely be undeterred in his aim to rewrite the rules of global commerce in America's favor, as many political experts have highlighted. But for further clarity, let's just go across to David K. Johnston, who joins us. But before that, let's just take a look at what the White House had to say.
The president's rationale for imposing these powerful tariffs was legally sound and grounded in common sense. President Trump correctly believes that America cannot function safely long-term if we are unable to scale advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, have our own secure critical supply chains, and our defense industrial base is dependent on foreign adversaries. Three judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him.
To better understand what's going on and to understand the wider ramifications, let's go across to David Johnston, who's with us, sir, as always. Thank you so much for making time for us. The trade court says that Congress and not the president holds tariff power. So how significant is this ruling in reaffirming constitutional checks and balances? And sir, could this actually reshape how executive authority is interpreted in economic policy?
This is a very important decision by this specialized court with three judges, one of whom Donald Trump appointed. And they basically wrote in their 49-page opinion a primer for the Supreme Court, which is not a specialized but a generalist court. Here's how trade law works, and here's what the Constitution says. That document will be very important when this case gets to the Supreme Court. Donald Trump does not have the authority to impose these tariffs. That is authority held by Congress, except for special, narrow, emergency situations. Right. And the court made it clear there's no such emergency.
And given the abrupt legal reversal, the temporary reinstatement, how does this back and forth actually affect U.S. credibility as a trade partner, sir? You think global trading allies view this more as legal turbulence or strategic instability?
Oh, I think this is very much seen as instability. It is humiliating for Donald Trump. At the end of the day, even with the very conservative Supreme Court in the United States, he will lose on this because this is very clear law. So this is very bad for Donald Trump, and it's part of all the stumbling and losing that's going on because Donald simply asserts that he has dictatorial powers. Frankly, watching Press Secretary Leavitt in the clip you ran, it's very hard not to laugh at her comments because they have nothing to do with the law, something, of course, I've taught for many years.
Yes, indeed. And in terms of whether this is strategic tradecraft or systemic gamble, well, Trump has long used tariffs as leverage in diplomacy, as we've learned. From a policy design angle, sir, is this tactic sustainable, or does it actually risk making U.S. trade policy too reactive and too volatile?
Oh, I think the second part of your observation, Trump's flip-flopping on this, which used to be a death knell for a politician to be accused of flip-flopping, is not helping at all. And Trump is in many ways destroying imported money to the United States. For example, professors like me are responsible for lots of foreign students coming to America where they pay 100% tuition, which subsidizes universities. His actions here are very contrary to the economic interests of the U.S., but that's because Trump, even though he has a degree in economics, Donald literally doesn't know anything about economics.
Well, in fact, many experts are actually driving that point home. But as we wrap, sir, Do you see this as a precedent-setting moment that could curb future administrations' use of trade as a unilateral tool?
Yes, I expect at the end of the day, the Supreme Court will issue a ruling making it clear that Congress sets trade policy. The role of the president is simply to do what Congress says.
Right.
Now, Congress may well pass his tariffs because his party is in control. But until they do that, he does not have the authority to do these things. Congress must do them.
Professor, always a pleasure to hear your views. Thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on NDTV.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, India is in the process of reviewing a US federal court order that has blocked most of the sweeping tariffs announced by Donald Trump last month. In fact, this is something NDTV has learned through our sources. The Court of International Trade, in its ruling, has said that the White House cannot authorize the president to unilaterally impose reciprocal tariffs on all trading partners by invoking an emergency law. So this development comes amid the ongoing trade talks between India and the US. The negotiations, by the way, are progressing well, and the persons privy to this development have informed NDTV that a team of American officials will be visiting New Delhi next month on the 5th and 6th of June. And with that, let's turn our attention now to Canada. Well, India's Ministry of External Affairs has urged Canada not to provide any political space to extremist pro-Khalistan elements that are advocating for violence and secession. On the other hand, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney had also publicly called for improving ties with India, something our colleague Maha Siddiqui has been reporting about constantly. In fact, on the 26th of May, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar also had a conversation with his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand, marking the first interaction with the Canadian Foreign Minister since she took office. Just listen in to the Ministry of External Affairs' latest reaction.
Rishabh, on a question regarding pro-Khalistan elements, you know our position has been very consistent. Over several months and years now, we've conveyed our security concerns to the Canadian side, and we have also urged them not to give any political space to extremist elements, those who advocate violence and those who talk about secession or who talk about separatism. I hope that the Canadian side will take due note and will take due action against those who advocate anti-India agenda.
And my colleague Maha Siddiqui joins us live from Vancouver at the moment with a quick update. Maha, take us through the latest developments and how India's message is being perceived in Canada's political circuits.
India's reaction comes to what we saw in the BC legislature, that is British Columbia legislature, the province where I am, in Victoria. While the legislature was on, we saw that one of the MLAs, in fact, welcomed a group of rap singers, and at least 3 of them are now being named as those who have either promoted or advocated for the Khalistani movement or have used imagery related to the Khalistani separatism movement. So that is a cause of concern. And these 3 names that are being mentioned are Jazzy B, Inderpal Moga, and Channi Nathan. They were present in the BC legislature and were welcomed by some conservative as well as NDP MLAs. In fact, there were also pictures that have been posted by some of the MLAs on their social media handles as well, of pictures with some of these rap artists. They are being accused of having promoted or, as I pointed out, backing the Khalistani separatist movement. And this reaction of India has been in response to that, where India has clearly said that India's stand has been consistent on this. They have time and again asked Canada to be cognizant of the fact that this is a separatist movement and that India wants these security concerns and challenges addressed by Canada, and that people who backed this movement should not be given political space. That is exactly what the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson has once again pointed out. And the background to this reaction is what transpired at the BC legislature 2 days ago.
Maha, as always, thank you so much for breaking down all the latest details for us. Well, switching tracks, India and the European Union will conduct a joint naval exercise in the Indian Ocean from the 1st of June until the 3rd of June. This exercise will focus on advanced counter-piracy operations, tactical maneuvers and enhanced communication protocols, reflecting the growing maritime security cooperation between our two sides. You must also note that this is in line with our shared commitment to a free, open, inclusive and rules-based maritime order in the Indo-Pacific region. This is what the European Union has also said. In fact, it is underpinned by the respect for territorial integrity, democracy, rule of law, freedom of navigation and overflight, and peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law, notably the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. This is what the EU has said in its latest statement. Slipping into a very quick commercial break for now. Back in a moment with the latest updates for you. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back. Let's turn our attention now to the neighborhood, Nepal specifically, where tens of thousands of protesters are demanding the abolished monarchy be restored and the former king be made the head of the state of the Himalayan nation. This is what the protests are about. In fact, the protesters, waving flags and chanting slogans, demanded the return of the king and the restoration of Hinduism as a state religion as they marched through the main circle in the capital, Kathmandu. Just a few hundred meters away from the pro-monarchy protesters, their opponents, who are supporters of the Prime Minister, had gathered at the exhibition grounds to celebrate Republic Day. In fact, we have a reaction lined up for you regarding why the protesters are out on the streets in large numbers. Listen in.
हामी सशक्त रूपमा आन्दोलन गर्दैछौं कि नेपालको हितको निमित्त जबसम्म संवैधानिक राष्ट्र स्तर र हिन्दू राष्ट्र स्थापित हुँदैन तबसम्म हाम्रो आन्दोलन जारी रहन्छ.
Well, switching tracks, Mount Everest has suffered traffic jams, believe it or not. In fact, this month, Mount Everest has been seeing many traffic jams as climbers battled harsh weather to make it to the summit. Hundreds of climbers and their Sherpa guides signed up to scale the famous mountain in May, struggling against deteriorating weather on the world's highest mountain. Meanwhile, Nepal's government has said that it has a duty to protect the Himalayas from the risks presented by climate change and also the growing numbers of climbers that are attempting to scale the region's summit, especially Everest.
Overall, Everestमा चाहिँ तपाईको मेन चाहिँ वेदर नै हो. त्यो मैले भने जस्तो वेदर त्यो भनेको जस्तो नहुने प्रेडिक्ट गरेको जस्तो वेदर नभएर नै हो. अनि सेकेन्डली चाहिँ अब अलिकति क्राउडहरु पनि हो. अनि क्राउड चाहिँ कस्तो भने तपाईको त्यो बिगिनर्सहरु पनि त्यही, प्रोफेसनलहरु पनि त्यही, अनि बिगिनर्सहरुले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अलिकति अब ट्राफिक जामको समस्याहरु हैन, अब बाटोतिर पनि अलिकति ढिला हुने अनि त्यसपछि त्यो समस्याहरु. अनि अर्को चाहिँ अब बेस क्याम्पमा यो फ्लू हैन, यो खुम्बु कफ भन्दै रहेछ, त्यो चाहिँ एकदम व्यापक थियो यसपालि हाम्रो, स्पेशली हाम्रो ग्रुपमा. त हाम्रो ग्रुपमा धेरै जना फर्क्यो, म पनि त्यो मध्ये फर्किने म भरे.
In other news, the United States has ordered many companies to stop shipping goods to China without a license and revoke licenses already granted to certain suppliers. This is what our sources have informed us. And these new restrictions, which are likely to escalate tensions with Beijing, they appear aimed to choke points to prevent China from getting products necessary for key sectors. This is what reports have highlighted as well. The other big story we're tracking, an American flag was hoisted outside of the long-shuttered US ambassador's residence in Damascus in a sign of growing ties between Washington and the new Syrian government. The US ambassador to Turkey, who has also been appointed special envoy to Syria, arrived to inaugurate the residence, as Syrian state-run news agency Sana had reported. And moving on, a top Russian official has praised North Korean troops for assisting Vladimir Putin's military in the Ukraine war. Sergei Shoigu, the secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, has said the troops deployed by Pyongyang to Russia had fought in the Kursk region. This is what the Kremlin newswire has also reported. Meanwhile, in a significant move, France will ban smoking in all outdoor places that can be frequented by children. This ban will come into force on the 1st of July and will include beaches, parks, public gardens, outside schools, sports venues, as well as bus stops. And you must note that breaking the rules would incur a €135 fine. That's $153 or about 13,000 Indian rupees. Meanwhile, singer Arijit Singh will make history as the first Indian artist to headline a UK stadium with a live show scheduled for the 5th of September at London's Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.